joining us right now is that very man, the host of Morning Glory, Matthew Johns. Good afternoon.
Joel, Socky, how are you, lads?
Outstanding. Matty, what's been happening in your world?
Look, not a real. I mean, start of the season, as you guys know, it's been pretty crazy. It's been a bit nuts. You try to bed down a routine. You know, you find everything. You know, some days you're either working or you're planning to work. So, but it's great. You know, really enjoying it. I mean, it was a disruptive start to the season. I can only imagine how the players felt who went to Vegas because, you know, Fletch and I were on the way home from the plane and said, mate, it feels like we're heading to the semi-finals. It was like the back end of the year. And Victor Radley said as much on the Sunday. We were talking to Victor before he came on the show on the Sunday. And I said, how was it? And he said basically the first day they returned from training, Robbo gave them an extended stay off, but they turned up and basically just said, mate, go home. Like everyone was still pretty flat. So that's a big challenge for those four sides.
Matty, I got hammered for leaving Penrith out of my top four. I've got them running fifth, and it's no disrespect at all to Penrith, but they're not robots. These blokes. They've been to four grand finals, and you throw in the overseas trips of this year, and it's just a big assignment, isn't it?
Well, I wrote an article this week about it. You know, is that just about the challenges that face Penrith, and my opinion is the greatest threat to Penrith is themselves.
Yep.
You blokes know as professional sportsmen, you know, the desire or the fire in the belly, it's not an eternal flame. You know, it takes stoking up, and, you know, adulation sometimes can pour sand on the fire.
Yeah.
That's a challenge. And the other thing is the longer the sustained run of success, the more complex the challenges become. And, you know, you think about Nathan Cleary, and I spoke to him on the podcast, Cooper and I, and, you know, I asked him about that 17 minutes in the grand final and how it changed his life, and he said it just changed it dramatically. He said wherever he went, people would recognise him, and it was nice. You know, people were nice. It wasn't an intrusion. But, you know, you're talking about a kid who was getting filmed from long-angle lenses, from paparazzi, people inquiring about his private life. He went from being a guy who, you know, people wanted to talk about his goal kicking, his football achievements, to suddenly want to talk about his possible relationships, and that can throw you off balance.
Backstage is the podcast, and look, tremendous podcast, and yourself and Coops, he's doing a wonderful job. Matty, tell the listeners who you've got coming up, who you've had on, and how did it all come about?
Well, we got the studio here, and, you know, we just thought, you know, we're sitting there, and, you know, Coops, retired from football now, as Jack. Jack put the studio together. He's done everything. He's learned how to edit and cut, and we just thought, you know, you just wheel people through. The great thing about having it in the house, Joel, is that you can sit there and something might come up in a game, or, you know, during Origin time, and you just walk down to the studio and you just knock one out. But we've had Luke Brooks, so to speak. But we've had Luke Brooks. God, it's
the missile.
We had the missile. Missile was outstanding. We had Nathan Cleary. Next Monday we've got Candice and Dave Warner together. Some of the ones that are coming up: Mark Burris, Matty Nable, Gus Warland. We did Gus. Honestly, he was outstanding.
Really?
Talking about it, it was some of it fairly confronting about his charity work, but he was fantastic. And an old producer, something a little bit different, who I used to work with, Jenna Hocking, who is a relationship and sex expert on news and different sites. Yeah, Jenna came on and did, which was a bit of a toe curler.
Did you have the pen and paper out, did you, Matty, writing down notes?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, mate, all that stuff's way past me.
That's outstanding. That is outstanding. I can imagine Cooper in that particular chat just leaning a little bit more forward and attentive in that one.
Absolutely.
Matty, round one, everyone tends to overreact as to what they saw in round one. Who's the forgive file? See, for me, I think Newcastle are the forgive file. They couldn't have tried harder to botch that one. And who's the team that you think, what I saw, I'm a little bit concerned now?
Well, Dolphins and Titans, if those clubs weren't coached by Des and Wayne, I'd have real concerns. I sort of think in Desi's instance, I reckon you don't really start to understand the players and the team until the competition gets started. Now, you play the trial games, and that's all well and good, but the pressure's not really on. I think after that first round, Des will get a really good gauge on the things that makes his players tick, how they operate under pressure, all those things, and he'll get it right. And, and Wayne, it's funny this week, I was talking to someone and they said, the Dolphins, and I said, Wayne being Wayne, there's every chance they're going to knock off the Dragons this week. Both of those sides are coming from completely different aspects. Dolphins criticised, people going, wow, this could be a long year. Dragons were outstanding and lots of praise, and you sort of just get the feeling that Wayne might pull something.
You might have already answered this question, Matty, but out of round one, what was the biggest surprise that you saw moving forward? There were a lot of upsets, of course, but what was something that excited you the most out of what we've seen so far?
I tell you what I liked. I'm really happy for Kyle Flanagan and the way he played. To sort of track where Kyle came from, his road to where he is right at the moment. Very, very, very good junior with Cronulla. Had a good start to his career there. Became a big name purchase for the Roosters. And going to the Roosters when you're young guys, a little bit like in the old days getting bought by Manchester United. It's a big club and there's big expectations, big rewards when you go good. But if things get a little bit tough, then, there's someone standing behind you, he'll take your spot and you get moved on. That's the way it is. Tough place to go to when you're a young playmaker. He got moved on and he went to the Bulldogs in a particular period in their history which was very, very difficult. He's moved on to the Dragons amongst no fanfare whatsoever. But, look, I will say it's a father-son thing. No one knows their kids like the father. And Flano's often said, he knows how Kyle plays. The sequences which suit Kyle. Things that, the thing I liked about it, he put a few things in place which played to Kyle's strengths. And I think it's the best game he has played. I reckon it's the best game he's played since he's left Cronulla. I was very, very pleased for him because he's had a tough 2 or 3 seasons.
A little bit like Brooksy, they're not necessarily suited to be the main actor, but support actor, absolutely perfect.
Well, Joel, I actually think it's the other way around. I think he's a very neat, organised player, Kyle, and watching how he and Ben Hunt operated. He allowed Ben Hunt to be more just of a react and play. Like if you put Kyle alongside Cooper Cronk, let's say, is that Cooper will take the role that Kyle suits, and I think that's happened a little bit at clubs he's turned up at. So they're a nice mix.
I want to ask you on the back of that, then, Matty. You're not a big Bunnies fan, you know that. Yeah. Let's just say it doesn't go so well for Lachie Ilias after 10 weeks. What South pairs halving would you pick, given they've got White and Dean Hawkins, who's played pretty well in the trials? How might you see that crystal balling to say it just doesn't work out for Lachie Ilias? Who would you have at 6 and 7 with South?
It's tough, Socky. I'm sort of loath to talk about, like a young guy if he doesn't get, but, it's our job in the media. Yeah. It's part of it, I reckon if the combination of, for whatever reason, if the combination of Lachie and Cody don't work, and I don't think that's sometimes a reflection on Lachie, it's just maybe it's the way they're just trying to play and it's not working.
Yep.
Is that I'd have serious consideration putting Jack White into 6, Cody into 7, and I think what would happen. My criticism about Souths is the fact that they trust their attack too much. They don't pour enough energy into their defence at times, and I think at times they get a little bit one-dimensional. It's the right far post back to the left to Cody. I still think their best football is when the focal point of their attack is Cookie. Murray starts punching through. They start to win the forward battle, and they centralise their attack more. So if suddenly they're looking for a different direction, and even and it's no reflection. I mean, Lachie could be playing outstanding, and they go, mate, this is just not working at the moment.
Yep.
Then I think the combination is you wouldn't replace Lachie with. Well, you wouldn't replace the combination of Cody and Lachie with a like combination.
Yep.
You go for a completely different style.
Okay.
And so you'd probably look at Cody and Whiten.
And same thing, Socky, with the Titans, right? So it's not compulsory to have traditional 6 and 7. If Weaver and Tanner Boyd, are not in your top 17, the old Jack Gibson philosophy, pick your best 17 players and work it out. If it turns out that it's Brimson alongside Jaden Campbell or Keanu Keane, whatever the case is, I think Des has got to pick the best 17. But
well, Joel, I think as long as you've got one strong, dominant playmaker, like if you look at some of the best sides, let's have a look. 2017, Melbourne Storm.
Yep.
Munster moves from 1 to 6 to accommodate the return of Billy Slater. Munster wasn't a 6. Munster didn't want to play 6. Munster had a lot of anxiety about moving to that jersey. But they came up with a system of play where Cooper Cronk, rather than dividing the field in half and just playing right side, he started to play the whole field.
Yep.
And they effectively played with 2 fullbacks. Now, Munster has evolved in his role as a playmaker and now can hold his hands up in that area. But originally, no. And I even look at the Broncos, right? So you got Adam Reynolds. Reynolds sort of controls the whole field. In a lot of ways, Ezra and Reece Walsh, they play almost like 2 number ones. Like Ezra's style of football is cut and thrust and run. Very similar to Walsh's.
Matty, we'll share a clip with Nathan Cleary on the Backstage podcast. But just before we do so, with Cleary, you may have asked him in this particular episode, but all these re-signings, Martin recently, Edwards, Tungor this week, do you reckon Nathan Cleary and his standing in the team, would him and Dad almost consult every single re-signing that Penrith do moving forward? Do you reckon? Would he almost have to sign off on it himself being the halfback?
Well, that's a difficult one. I don't think Ivan publicly would ever say that about Nathan. However, if I'm a coach, I always consult my if my number 7 is my key player and my leader, I'd consult him. There is no way I would sign a player blind without consulting my chief playmaker.
Yep. Okay, here is Nathan Cleary on the Backstage podcast. This is through Instagram.
Your debut, was that against Melbourne? I think I remember watching it. Was it an afternoon game in Melbourne?
It was a night game in Melbourne.
In Melbourne, yeah. What was that? Because I imagine the big 3 would have been playing.
Billy Slater wasn't playing, but Cam Smith and Cooper Cronk just backed up from Origin.
Yeah.
So that in itself was just like, holy shit, like what's going on here? So I got told on the Tuesday that I was going to debut. We were playing on the Saturday. I was shitting myself the whole week. This can't be real. Melbourne, they were the best team at the time. Came around. I was never been more nervous in my life. We got the ball first, had the first set of the game, and Sowie, who was my half partner, goes, "Oh, you get the first kick."
Oh, it's like, not what you want to hear.
Get yourself in the game. I was thinking, oh, God, kick pressure, all this. Kicked it, went to chase down. It was a real welcome to first grade moment. Jesse Bromwich just bumped me. And he goes, "Oh, we're coming at you, you're all game, you bitch." I go, great. Proceeded to make 40 tackles, I think, that game. And it was just I was so tired, but it was just...
well.
Yeah, Backstage. Follow him on Instagram, and also you can got the podcast, etc. there. Nathan Cleary, who I tell you what, Matty, I bumped into Justin Holbrook years and years ago, and I had never heard the name Nathan Cleary. No one. Usually, you hear the Spruik kid coming through. You hear about Sonny Bill Williams and all these other kids. I had never ever heard the name Nathan Cleary, and Justin Holbrook said this kid, he will be the best player in the game one day. Wow. And I watched him, and I thought, oh yeah, he's a solid player.
Yeah.
But mate, he was absolutely right.
Well, I saw Nathan play in SG Ball for the Panthers when Ivan first come back from New Zealand, and I watched him, and I went up to Ivan in the grandstand, and Ivan and his wife Beck, and said, "Geez, young Nathan goes okay. He's got a nice running game." He said, "Yeah, he's finding his way," and I really hadn't given Nathan a lot of thought after that. You're too busy, watching blokes at the top end. And then one day on a Sunday morning, I get a text from Josh Stewart, who of course is Nathan's uncle, the old North Sydney often suspended enforcer. And Josh, the Axeman, rang me and said, texted me and said, "Matty, look, the nephew, Nathan Cleary, is making his debut in the under-20s. Would you mind just sending him a text and wish him all the best?" So I sent him a text, and I'm thinking, good on you, young fella. Go for it. You know, one day you might be something.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I think you're going to lead to the young guy. You're going to make his debut here for the Tigers.
Oh, mate, you are a segue aficionado because we're talking about Lachlan Galvin, 18, down there in the nation's capital.
Is he youngest, second youngest? Since the Tigers.
Well, it'd be since Benji, probably, isn't it? Or Chris Lawrence, perhaps.
Yeah, okay.
What do you make of that, Matty?
It's exciting for him. Yeah, good play. I've seen a little bit of him play. He's a clever playmaker. He's a strong runner of the football. He's deceptive. He carries himself with a lot of confidence. You know, for Lockie, if I had to give any advice to him, I would, a little bit like Nathan Cleary. I remember the next grab on that interview, I said to Nathan, because Nathan was very, very self-deprecating. 40 tackles. I was so stuffed. And I said, Nathan, I remember going away thinking, geez, that was a strong debut. When I mean strong debut, 6 out of 10 in Melbourne, against Melbourne in Melbourne. Right? What he did, he tackled really well, he kicked well, and he talked well. That was it. He did nothing flash. He was in a very tough place to make a debut, and guess what? He was just solid. That's what he did, and that's, you know, Lockie, that's all he's got to worry about. Mate, early on, just play physical, make your tackles. Don't try to finesse the football out there. Just get that football. And if you don't like what you see, don't try to force it. Just take them on with your speed and your footwork, right up, and kick well. That's it. If you're going on your debut, nail a 6 or a 6.5 out of 10, everything else is a bonus.
Yeah, this bloke 30 years ago on this day nailed just a little bit better than a 6 out of 10. Have a listen to this, all thanks to Winfield Cup 1994 on Twitter.
Well, there's not too many people that have had debuts in first grade in Winfield Cup like Andrew Johns had today. Andrew, congratulations on a magnificent game.
Thanks, mate. It was good playing behind the forwards today. They went forward, and it was good having Matt beside me.
Gave that impetus early in the game, the forwards, with all that go forward, wasn't it?
Yeah, like Truth said through the week, we've got to go out and go full ball flat out and match their enthusiasm. That's one of the Challenge Cup. So the forwards went out and they won it for it in the first 20 minutes.
Tremendous having your brother alongside you. Must have given you a lot of confidence in first grade today.
Yeah, mate, he helped out a lot. He jumped in first receiver and called all the shots, and I sat back, so that helped me out a lot.
Well, Andrew, on behalf of Just Jeans, please accept the Just Jeans Man of the Match, $250 worth of clothing from Just Jeans. And Matty Rodwell said it won't go astray.
Hey, come on, it. Throw away the stubbies.
Matty,
still got that wonderful sense of humour.
Yeah. $250 for Just Jeans. That'd get you a lot back in those days.
Yeah. Do you know, on the young fella making his debut, it's very easy to look at. Sometimes I reckon on debut, you can get a little lucky, right? Andrew was unbelievable, but when you look back, like that first year in first grade was a difficult one for Andrew. He rode the roller coaster. He went through difficult periods. The first game, and probably a lot of times he built his expectations up on the first game, but if you go through the history of what happened, he mentioned the Challenge Cup there. So what we did, we played 2 trial games, had a light trial and a tough trial against Cronulla. Meanwhile, South Sydney were playing in the Challenge Cup. We got knocked out in the first game. They went all the way through. I think they played 4 tough games in a row, and actually won it. They beat Brisbane in like a really emotional final in the pre-season. And I remember at full time, like Fieldsy and some of those blokes in the South Sides were in tears.
Oh wow!
And they had to back up and play us the next week. And mate, they were just laid out for us. Like I think the boys have been on the drink till about the Wednesday or the Thursday. So by the time we played them on the Sunday, they were really a shadow of the side that had turned up against the Broncos and won that pre-season. And on top of that for Joey was the fact that he mentioned the forwards. Like the forward pack, he had Paul Harrigan, Mark Sargent, Mark Glanville, Tony Butterfield, Adam Muir. Like it's a world-class pack of forwards. And they really cleared the way for him. And as I said before, it's very easy to look at Andrew in that first game and go, wow. And from there, the rest was history. No. The week after, we played West at home. We had 29,000 people, great expectation about our season. They had Langmack, Jason Alchin, all those old blokes. And Andrew played the worst game of his career. Wow. And they just sledged him and got into him. And that was, for a young bloke, that's the roller coaster of your first year in first grade.
Yeah, well, Lachlan Galvin, we wish him all the best. Anything close to Joey's debut, he's in for a flyer. Morning glory tomorrow, Matty, from 9 o'clock. What can we expect there?
Mate, we've got a tourist who's going to join us.
Oh, the tourist.
Alex is away learning the pan
Oh,
pipe.
yes.
So, tourist, he's going to be in. We've got Movie of the Week Falling Down, Michael Douglas, Webster, we've got Beak, we've got Benny Hogarth in. Everything's going on.
Appointment listening. He's kept that quiet, Matty. The tourist is on your airwaves tomorrow. Good on you, mate. Have a good night.
Good on you, lad. See you, Socky.
There he is, Matty Johns, the tourist. How'd you keep that under your hat?